Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to our Nancy Drew Games review series, where we are ranking every single Nancy Drew game on 6 key aspects, being the story and premise, the suspects, the puzzles, the music, and the atmosphere and ending of each game. I'm your host, Jameson.
And I'm Julian. What's going on, everybody?
And today we are reviewing Nancy Drew 18, The Phantom of Venice.
Nancy Drew and The Phantom of Venice came out in 2008. In my opinion, it's one of the more underrated games in the entire franchise. We just replayed it recently, and I think it's safe to say we really enjoyed it. It was a ton of fun.
We were surprised. We were never really a fan of the foreign games in the teens, and we especially never liked Danger by Design, and for some reason I feel like we always conflated this game with Danger by Design.
Yeah, but they're extremely different.
Extremely different. This game is vastly superior.
This is how you do a Nancy Drew spy game. I don't have any quarrels with Silent Spy. I think that's a decent game, but like this blows Silent Spy out of the water. This is how you do a spy game, in my opinion.
And it seems like it was made maybe 5 or 6 years before that, and
yeah, and I think it's better, honestly.
Yeah, this game. It's certainly a very, very ambitious Nancy Drew. I was personally really impressed with a lot of stuff that they pulled off, and I was thinking like, oh, so they're talking about this, but there's no way they're going to actually make it a puzzle or include it. And then the next thing you know, you're on a heist. I say it's time to get into the story of the game. Do you feel confident, or should I do it?
Yeah, I'll give a brief rundown on the story. It's a pretty interesting one. The Italian secretive police have reached out to Nancy Drew, and they're asking her to help investigate a series of art thefts that have been going around in Venice, Italy. That alone is a great premise, but the thefts have been tied back to a crime syndicate.
Yes, this game deals with the Italian mafia, which I feel like they really nerfed in terms of how brutal mafias can be.
So the Italian police have hired Nancy to do undercover detective work, and they have one guy in particular in mind who could be the potential Phantom of Venice, and that is Antonio Fango.
Anyhow, Nancy is posing as an art student or something of the sort at the Ca' Nascosta, which is a really old ruin almost of just this Venetian waterside hotel, I guess, that is being restored, and there's a boy there named
Colin
Baxter, who is also Justin Beaumont, but we'll get into that. And he's there restoring all the beautiful mosaic tiles that they have in the place, and Nancy has to help with that at one point, and I actually think that that's a pretty decent puzzle looking back on it.
There's two other suspects that stay at the Ca' Nascosta other than Nancy and Colin, and that's Helena Berg and Margarita Fauborg. And in my opinion, just their last names are a little confusing. We're gonna be referring them to on a first name basis for now.
Yeah.
But the final suspect is named Enrico Tazza, and he is kind of like He's the one that collects stolen artifacts, and he fences them off for money. He's kind of like the middleman when it comes to stealing and selling things. So, I mean, he's obviously dealing with a lot of illegal stuff. Nancy is well aware of this, but she works with him, which is a pretty clever plot point, and she has to go undercover, play some Scopa with him. Classic Scopa, but he's a cool character. We never actually see his face, though, because the Carnival season is going on, and he's wearing a mask.
So on that note, this game has a lot of really ambitious subplots, and we'll get to those, and puzzles and atmosphere. Anyhow, the whole game you are using your police-issued pager to keep in touch with your police contact, Sophia, and from there, it just gets better and better. I honestly feel like this was a really solid game, and playing it for the first time really in like 6 or 7 years was just astounding. So without further ado, I think it's time we get into suspects.
So in my opinion, the suspects in this game are the weakest part. They kind of water down the story a little bit. No one really stands out as a favorite. If I had to pick one, it would probably be Colin/Justin, because he's pretty interesting, got a cool background, but I really was not a fan of most of the suspects of this game, and I'm not sure why that is. None of them just really seemed that eye-catching or interesting, nor did they have, like, I don't know, interesting lines of dialogue. All in all, dialogue in this game was kind of lackluster, and the story is what propels it up. But let's get started with Nancy's roommate, Helena Berg. She is
Journalist, you said?
Yeah. Helena is a journalist who covers major crime stories, so that's already kind of like a little suspicious.
Lisa Ostrom of her.
To put it gently.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's covering the Phantom of Venice as what the
media's calling it.
The media's calling it, because absolutely no traces or clues are left after each art thief. So it's kind of like a phantom is the one that's doing all the stealing.
And she says all sorts of cool stuff, like there's also a cool rumor going around that the Phantom could actually be a woman, which would make national headlines and stuff worldwide.
I didn't like that the Phantom turned out to be someone we'd never interact with.
I mean, there's still people behind the operation, but I feel like we should have been able to meet Nico, even if it's after we know he's the Phantom, maybe just at like the Scopa place with Enrico, because they gave him so much visual personality. He dresses up like such a clown, and then he robs people. He's got like almost a Sunny June charm, is how I'd say it, where he's just so quirky, but you never get to meet him or talk to him.
Well, he's the huge cover art for the game, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And for a person to be that huge, just like that big of an advertisement for the game, and we don't even get to see his true character, it felt a little bit weird.
If I can take a quick detour, I don't like the cover art for this game. I feel like they gave him a really weird mask where it looks like he just has silly putty on his head. It would be much better if they did cover art that just showed like the canals or the car or something. But otherwise, we can move on to the next person who's staying at the car, and that would be Colin Baxterly. I keep on wanting to call him Justin Baxterly.
Not Baxterly.
Okay, yeah. This guy has two names, so I always confuse which first name goes with what last name. You find out maybe halfway through the game that he's not who he says he is, because he's actually like a convicted felon for stealing art.
Colin/Justin is definitely the most dynamic character in the game. Everyone else kind of just remains the same and slightly despises Nancy on the down low.
Oh, and also...
But what's unique about Colin is that he's the most outwardly loving suspect for Nancy. He talks about how he has a crush on her multiple times.
He leaves her sausages. She gets food poisoning.
He leaves her tainted sausages. He's from Oxford, England, and his story is that he's working here under Margarita for little to no pay, which is a little sketchy. And he claims that it's because he's such a lover of the arts, the money doesn't matter to him, which sure, that I guess that backs it up, but I mean, it's just a little weird. It adds suspicion onto him that A, he's not actually Colin Baxter, and that B, he's working here for almost free. It makes you think that he has a hidden motive.
Yeah, I just totally want to say, we gotta recall us saying in Shadow Ranch review that Dave, the foreman, was the most flirtatious Nancy Drew suspect. Colin easily takes that title, and we didn't realize how he was.
Something that I liked this game did was that multiple suspects, Colin does it a lot, is he remarks on Nancy's necklace, and it's actually good foreshadowing because that necklace ends up being stolen by the Phantom.
It was given to her by Ned at the airport just before she left for Venice.
Right. Colin asks, like, what bloke gave you that necklace, or whatever he says. Yeah. And Nancy says, oh, my boyfriend did. He just shoots him down. It's pretty funny, but...
And, like, Helena comments on it. He says, ooh, that's so cute, Nancy. At least so much. And then, like... Margarita just says, yuck, that's an ugly locket. And she says, like, oh, when you're used to seeing such extraordinary things like I do, everything else just kind of pales in comparison. Margarita, I think that's a good segue into her character.
Yeah, sure.
I don't like her. No one's supposed to like her, I don't think. She's just kind of a snake.
Well, her character, she's recently a widow, and she bought the Canas Costa.
We'll never get these pronunciations.
Yeah, we're
right.
sorry for all these pronunciation butcherings here, but she's recently a widow, and it's rumored that she doesn't have the financial backings anymore to help her pay this thing off.
And so you find out later on that she's actually been forcing Colin to, or at this point we would call him Justin, I think, but she's been forcing Colin to use the cheapest materials possible for the mosaic restorations, which is something that he has serious moral qualms about, because, like, he loves art more than life.
That was a really cool part of the story, in my opinion, that little feud between Colin/Justin and Margarita, and especially her financial troubles that she's having. It doesn't appear that way at all. She's just... I think it's... The reason that we don't like her so much is she's intentionally built up to be so annoying. You know, she's tanning. She can't even look at Nancy to, like...
She always wears sunglasses. Just looks like a total snarky woman.
It's like Nancy's presence means nothing to her. She's pretty snarky, too. It's just super annoying.
Alright, and so, finally for suspects, it's not really much of a suspect, because there's not much you can talk about with him. you have Enrico Taza, and this is a very interesting part of the game because you actually pose as somebody else every time you talk to him. Nancy has to go around to a different cause after getting a piece of paper out of a trash can that says that some woman named Quick should be meeting with Enrico someday soon. And so she poses as this woman, who we later learn is a heist specialist, and who comes back in later games. Samantha Quick dresses in a red dress. She has blonde hair and sunglasses and white gloves. And I think that, like, people remark on it, like, oh, God, Nancy, are you wearing a wig? What's with that? Whenever you dress up like that. I liked dressing up in this game because you can, like, buy the Jolly Rogers mask from Legend of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
And then just go to places dressed as that. That was great. But, anyhow...
When I think of Enrico, I immediately associate him with Scopa.
Oh, okay,
which,
yeah.
fun fact, Her Interactive has actually made this into a real game that you can buy from their shop.
This is a real game to begin with. It's an Italian game, but they now sell card sets of the actual cards you play within the game. And I'm actually thinking about buying some. I forget how much they cost.
And I always revered Scopa as just this miserable experience that I could never win it. But Jamie and I had a ton of fun playing it in our playthrough.
Yeah, because when we were younger, Scopa made no sense to us because we sucked at math, and we still suck at math, but we don't suck so much that we can't do basic addition. So this was a really fun game to do.
Yeah, Enrico's entire character, he makes Nancy, or who he assumes is Samantha Quick, play Scopa with him.
He says he has like a bunch of rituals he does. He says, I am a very successful man, and the key to success is repetition and rituals. And one of my rituals is that I never discuss business with anybody unless they can beat me in a game of Scopa. And one thing that I really like about talking with Enrico, I think he's probably the most enjoyable person to talk to in the game, is that every time that he asks you something, you have two options of things you can say. You can say something that's just like novice, where Nancy's showing she's kind of a fraud, or Nancy can just be like super overconfident and just say stuff that's like snarky, like she's really getting into character. Like he says,
Give an example.
I'm sure that you are familiar with the sapphire piece that we're going after. And then Nancy just goes, I didn't come here for a quiz, Taza.
That's a good line to tell.
Yeah, and there's tons of them like that, where Nancy's just dropping zingers left and right at this dude. There's tons of fun to listen to.
No, that's actually a pretty good dialogue differentiation with that guy. I like that. They should do that for more suspects.
Yeah, it's a pretty underused gimmick in the franchise, where Nancy just pretends to be somebody else. I can't even think of any other instances where that happens on hand, but it worked really well in this game. I thought it was excellent.
And the final suspect, we need to cover him. His name is Antonio Fango. He's the mob boss that the entire story hinges on. The Italian police has hired you so that you can investigate this guy.
Yeah,
Though you never actually talk to him in the game, which is kind of upsetting in my opinion.
You break into his office time and time again, though, and watch him from the rooftop with binoculars. The Canas Costa, the reason you're staying there, really, is because it's right across the street from Antonio Fango's building. I forget what it says on the top of the building. It says something in giant red letters. Do you remember?
No, I don't.
Okay, that's not important anyways. And so this guy, I guess he runs a business which has been used as a front for this fencing stolen art and stuff like that. So you never really meet him, so there's not really much to say on his personality. He has a character model and everything. You watch him from the window with your binoculars, and he has this whole crazy puzzle that we're about to get into in the puzzle segment with pigeons.
Mm-hmm.
That was... Oh my gosh, they should have really... There were so many ways they could have made it a little bit more practical, but...
Antonio's way of communication is awesome. Like,
yes,
it's so original, it's so unique, it's the perfect level of difficulty to decipher, but I mean, yeah, we'll get into that at puzzles. That just made me like his character more, and I just wish I could have had a conversation with this dude, but... No, I guess not.
Well, last thing I want to say about Suspects is something we missed about Colin. Colin is absolutely obsessed with just these little mosaic tesseract tiles.
Ugh.
And the first time you talk to him, new players will foolishly agree to look at his tesseract slides. And then he just goes on for like 3 minutes if you don't realize that it doesn't end, saying like, what a gorgeous color. And it's just gray.
Yeah.
And it just changes from slide to slide of just literally colors and
Beautiful
shapes.
shade of crimson.
This one makes me think of butterflies or something. He talks so stupid doing that. But
Yeah, it really got me because it's actually endless. The character has to back out, and I thought I was in for like this little cutscene of like 4 or 5 mosaic tiles, but no, it went on forever.
Seeing as he's usually the first person you talk to, I think you mandatorily have to talk to him as soon as you leave your room. That's always kind of dumb to me. I never really liked that.
When you're spying on Antonio on the roof of the Canas Costa, something that I really liked. It's a little interaction with Margarita. She asks you what you're looking at through the binoculars, and you have 3 options. You can say that you're bird watching, you can say that you're looking at the canals or something trivial like that, or you can say right out, I'm spying on someone. And this can actually, I believe it has some interaction later in the game, right?
Yeah, you come back to the car one day and like Helena and Margarita and Justin are all gossiping about you. Margarita's just like, this American girl is crazy. She's talking about how she's spying on people from the balcony or something like that.
See, when I played the game, I said that I was spying on someone because I thought, like...
It was inconsequential?
Yeah, well, no, not necessarily that. I thought that if she wouldn't take it, like, that seriously, you know? Like, I thought it would be, like, a sarcastic joke type thing, but no. It actually does have some motivation and presence later in the game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So now that we're getting into puzzles, this game does a pretty good job with puzzles in terms of making them difficult. Some of them are fun and enjoyable.
I'll just repeat that.
Some of them are fun and enjoyable. Most of the puzzles in the game come from the bank, where you go there at the like MI6's behest, the police that you're working with, and they'll leave you something in a little drop box that you'll need for a puzzle. It'll be like a pair of binoculars or something like a bugged pen and just microphone chips and stuff like that. But first, you spy on Antonio Fongo and find out that he uses pigeons for something. You go to break into his office with a bobby pin, and you explore a bit, and you have to hide in his closet, and he, like, closes the closet door on you because it's, like, slightly ajar, and you really think he's gonna catch you.
Something that really irked me is that every time you have to go and break into this dude's office, you have to do the lockpick puzzle again.
I mean,
I wish there was a way to bypass it. It makes sense, but it is a little annoying, because you have to go to this dude's office like a minimum of 4 or 5 separate times in the game.
The man's involved in the mafia. If he notices that his door is, like, unlocked all the time, he's gonna, like, freak out. But anyways, so basically, Nancy determines that there is a pigeon that has some sort of, like, message on it, and it flies.
It's got a message tied around one of its ankles, and we find this out because when Nancy's spying on him with the binoculars, we see him open the window to greet this one pigeon in particular. It's waiting there patiently for him, and then he unravels something off of the little foot of the pigeon. It was pretty clever, and it's a really cool, subtle way of communicating between him and the crime syndicates.
Yeah, this guy still communicates with carrier pigeon in, like, what is this, 2008, you said?
Yeah, 2008. Well, if you think about it, it's a pretty genius way to be doing all of your art fencing. I don't know.
But it gets even more complicated from there. So
Nancy
reports back to Sophia, and Sophia sends her a little microchip that's a tracking device, and Nancy puts it in bird feed and feeds it to the pigeon from the windowsill, and then the pigeon flies away. Nancy then has to use a tracker to figure out where the flock of pigeons for this particular pigeon is in it, and then she goes to, like, fountains and just public squares and stuff, and goes to a bunch of birds, and Nancy has about 6 or 7 clicks. She can try 6 or 7 birds of this flock of like 100 birds, and if she clicks on the right one, then she gets it. And if she clicks on the wrong one too many times, then they fly away and you have to go travel again to find out where they went.
Okay, I hated this puzzle.
This puzzle sucked.
Now, we play it on a TV, so maybe we have a little bit of a scaled resolution, which would make it harder, but we could not see at all if there was any, like, different thing at all about the pigeon.
What we've determined what it's supposed to be is that, like, you're supposed to look at the pigeon when you meet it and see that, like, oh, this one has a green neck as opposed to gray, and oh, this one has orange feet as opposed to red. We didn't know we were supposed to do that, and Nancy never makes any observations about it, so unless there's somewhere that we were missing, you have no idea what the characteristics are for this penguin if you don't already, for this pigeon, if you don't already know to look for them when you first meet it. You know, so Julian eventually guessed it correctly by just spam clicking on the horde of pigeons.
Okay, what this puzzle desperately needed was an observation Nancy wrote down, because this game has observations that are super helpful, or Nancy, like, verbally saying something. Now, if I remember correctly, the pigeon Antonio was using was blah blah blah. Make it a unique pigeon. Don't make it blend in with 100 different pigeons.
Oh my god, it was horrible.
Now, that was really annoying, but it propels a lot into the story, and I understand its use. It was pretty clever, but it was just an annoyance.
Okay, so if we want to talk more about how clever Antonio Fongo's codes are, once you find the pigeon, it's just the biggest slap in the face. The letter that you get, you unfold it, and it just says, hello, with an exclamation point. And so Nancy's just like, this can't be right. So she calls Sophia. Like, it kind of scared me because it's like, oh crap, do they know? Are they onto us? Do they know that we're like tracking them? It's like Mike from Breaking Bad move.
That would have been a cool plot choice.
Yeah, but anyways, what Sophia, your police contact, tells you is that they're probably using microdots in the period on the exclamation point in hello. So what you do is you go back to Colin Baxter and you like ask, hey, may I use your microscope? And he goes, yeah. And then it turns out that the bulb was burnt out, and he thinks that you broke it, and he just freaks out and goes, how could you be so careless, Nancy?
Oh, yeah, that caught me so far out of the blue. He blows up on us.
And then Nancy just goes, Colin, I think it just needs a new bulb. And he goes, oh, yes, certainly. And so then you have to, like, do this Tesseract puzzle for him or something. Anyhow, you look at this little dot from the exclamation point under a microscope, and in very, very, very small letters, literally microscopic, you can't see them without the scope, it says, Il Dottore requests that you change the combination to the safe room storage place to 43657 or something like that. And it was just so crazy of a puzzle to think that, what printer do they use to use font size .0000001?
I liked it. That puzzle in and of itself, finding out that there's a secret message in the dot in the exclamation point on this paper wrapped around a pigeon's ankle, it kind of just adds to the gravity of the work that Antonio and this crime syndicate does, and it made me feel like, wow, we're really messing with the big leagues right now.
Yeah, this is probably Nancy's biggest adventure yet on like a global scale. This is the first one where she's like working with the police directly. What else do you want to talk about for puzzles? Because there are good puzzles and there are bad puzzles. I think Scopa I would call a good puzzle if you understand the rules. It's fun. You have to play it and win it twice, both times when you talk to Enrique. Or Enrico, I can't remember what it is. Doesn't matter.
My favorite puzzle of the game, and in my opinion, the perfect fine line between education and puzzle, is the catching Nico, the Phantom.
That's your favorite?
That's my favorite puzzle, yeah. With working directly with the police, and you have to learn the Italian words for like objects that are around the place. Okay. It's so cool.
That was a very ambitious puzzle. What happens at one point of the game, you find out, this is really towards the end, and I would have thought this would be the end game, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I thought it was the end game too. I was baffled to learn that we're like 2/3 of the way through the case after this puzzle.
But no, luckily we still have another hour and a half of getting lost in the wells. So that was horrible. That's a puzzle that I don't even know how to describe, but it was not a fun one. Anyways, the way this puzzle works is you find out who the Phantom is, Nico Petit, and where he's about to hit next. And so you talk with the police and Sophia, and you guys arrange a stakeout where you have 4 police agents and detectives that will be hiding and embedded somewhere in this property. And they'll all call out in Italian where they're hiding. They'll say like, Il ombrello. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm hiding behind the blue umbrella. Or the tree, or the wall. They just say stuff in Italian. I don't speak Italian. And so, on that note, what you have to do is, every time they'll report where they are, and then you watch them all come out of their spots, and a 5th person will come out of somewhere. And wherever someone comes out of, where one of the officers didn't list that's where they were, that's the Phantom, and you have to click on them.
That was just a cool puzzle idea. Extremely unique. We've never seen anything like that in any other Nancy Drew case to date.
And it never gets a reskin.
Yeah, and I kind of like that. It really adds to the uniqueness of this game. Now, that's a great puzzle. I want to talk, the Wells puzzle we'll get to, it's not good. But another one that was a little tedious, it's also clicking kind of like the pigeons, and it's nonsensical too, is the Italian police drop off. And they'll drop off Nancy's, wait, what are they dropping off?
Oh, I forgot about that. They're dropping off like a set of, that's the pigeon thing, I think, the pigeon pill that you need.
Yes.
So the way that it works is, they'll tell you, hey, this is where we're dropping. We're gonna hide this tiny little speck for you at this kiosk stand, and it will self-freaking destruct if you don't pick it up in time.
I'm glad that they didn't bring these limited amount of clicks to find this thing that's hiding on your screen type of puzzle in other games, because this was just annoying.
Oh my god, yeah. So like,
but it's so nonsensical to me. How does this little pill that a pigeon's supposed to swallow, how does it have like this detonation ability?
I don't know. That's the Italian
And why is the
police
pigeon eating it then? Why are we gonna detonate this pigeon?
It's like safely. It's biodegradable or something, and it won't kill the pigeon. Maybe he'll burp. I don't know. But anyways, You just have to go to this scene and like look around, and you have like literally 8 seconds to find this little speck and click on it, or else a little plume of smoke just pops out and you see, oh, there it goes again. Now I have to wait for the next one to get dropped off somewhere. And it's a trial and error puzzle, really. If you don't know what to do, you'll get it after like the 5th or 6th time. But
so
it's
Jamie,
annoying.
Jamie, what's your favorite puzzle in this game?
I can't believe you didn't bring it up. The heist. The heist is so cool. It's like, it feels like a good Flash game from like the late 2000s. So
okay, I liked it, but at the same time, I felt like it was the farthest thing from a Nancy Drew puzzle. It just broke the norms of the game.
I feel like it broke the norms of the game too, but I feel like it was still fun. It was a fun break.
Okay, talk about it.
Basically, Nancy, as Samantha Quick, has to rob a warehouse where they're storing a diamond that was already stolen by thieves. So really, it's like questionable if it's moral or not to steal this, because you're stealing it from thieves to give it to other thieves. But anyways, Nancy talks to Sophia about it, and Sophia gives her blessing, like, yeah, go ahead, slay queen, commit a felony, we don't care, you're working for us. And so, Nancy gets this weird cat suit thing that she gets from a nightclub that she goes to dance at, and like, if she dances good enough, it's like the weirdest puzzle in the franchise. And like, you're looking straight at Nancy wearing this like full leather latex suit thing, with cat ears on top.
It felt a little out of place, to say the least.
And if Nancy gets it right, then this American stoner dude's just like, hey, you're pretty good, Nancy. What's your name? He's just like, oh, you need a new stage name. How about, and what does he say? Punchy LaRue. That's what he calls it. It's the weirdest thing, but you get to take the costume with you, and you can come back and dance for tips later on, because that's not like a red flag or anything.
Yeah.
I will never understand Italian culture if it's like how this game portrays it. But anyways, you put on the cat suit. No one dares remark that Nancy's just wearing a full-on, like, leather cat suit. That's just, no one will say a thing. We always talk to people when we change clothes. And so, you go to heist this place, and Nancy's just in this full-body suit. And it's like 5 different screens, and you're having to navigate through a warehouse full of boxes from a bird's eye view. And use the arrow keys, or you can like use the mouse if you like making it harder for yourself for some reason. But it's such a... how do I want to describe it? It does feel just like a Flash game. There are like little robot sentry things with rotating lasers, and they just wander all the corridors with their own little AI. And if one of these little Roomba things spots you, then you have to restart. And it's so much better than if it was like, you know, a game over sequence every time you got spotted.
So you know what I'm realizing is that this game, I think it's safe to say, this is the most unique puzzle game ever. We've never seen a puzzle like this before, the thief puzzle, where we see like this Flash game style of Nancy. We've never seen that Italian vocab puzzle with the catching Nico before, and we've never seen these point and click pigeon and the pigeon pill puzzles before. This game was a lot of first time puzzles, and I can respect it for that.
I would also call it similar to the black sheep of the franchise, kind of like Phantom of Venice, but not, kind of like Legend of the Crystal Skull, but not quite. Crystal Skull was a bit weirder, but this game had very unique puzzles, but they weren't always good puzzles. Because basically with the heist thing, you have to sneak through all the rooms, past all the robots, and disable 4 or 5 generators, I believe. And then that takes away all these high-intensity laser beams. Nancy can get to the middle and just steal this giant sapphire, and then she just sneaks back out and sends it right to Enrico Taza. And you have to play Scopa again to talk to him, but it's quite an excursion. So, without further ado, that leaves us with the infamous well puzzle. We had no idea what we were in for when we tried this puzzle, so we just mindlessly wandered into the wells, and that made it so much harder. Basically, you have to, like, balance the sewage and stuff, and some drains lead to others, and some drains drain others.
It's just a horrible maze, essentially. And I've seen the community go out and riot about this puzzle. It's truly horrible.
If you thought the rotating rooms from Curse of Blackmore Manor were bad, I mean, like, at least you only have to do this one once. But it's so much harder. If you make one mistake, you're paying for it for the next 35 minutes when you try to figure out where to go to restart.
Yeah, from my understanding, Jamie was the one that handled this puzzle from the game, but I was just watching in horror. It did not look fun.
There is, like, no real good solution or explanation online. Like, the walkthrough we had to use for some parts didn't tell us anything.
No, cut that. We never use a walkthrough.
No, I literally had to watch Arglefumph in his 2013 Phantom of Venice Let's Play. and how he did this puzzle, and he says like, oh yes, this is the last puzzle of the game, and it's a doozy. Oh, God, I love him so much. But anyways, as far as other notable puzzles go, there's a cool one with the answering machine in Fongo's office, where you can like find a code on the back of a pamphlet that Margarita brings over to his office, and that was a cool part of the game, spying on them again and seeing Margarita meeting with Antonio. And it basically leads you to this whole criminal syndicate directory, which has like, press 4 to find out where you can find your stolen goods and stuff, and like, press 6 to see where the next stakeout will be and stuff like that.
The facts okay, wait.
There's like a couple things you mandatorily have to press to advance the game, like find out where they hide a lot of stuff.
We gotta talk about chess.
Chess? Oh, that puzzle? Oh my gosh, yes! Okay, this game really was remarkable with puzzles. I completely forgot about the chess.
Yeah, the chess puzzle, this is tied for my favorite with the Catching Negro puzzle.
Oh
this
my
is
gosh.
so intricate and unique, and you have to be fully engaged to understand and solve this puzzle, and I love it.
Basically, the way that you communicate with, let's see, Gina is the chess server, and it's on Antonio's computer. And in order to negotiate with the person you're playing with about where you meet or where you're going to pull the next heist or something, in order to plan the next heist, you need to play a game of chess with this other person online, and you need to move your pieces in a way so that algebraically, because there's like an algebraic form of doing chess where like all the different pieces have like, all the different squares have like numbers and letters and stuff that mark them. You spell out like Palazzo Versailles or something.
Yeah, you need to move your pieces in very specific orders so that you're spelling out a word, because each tile on a chessboard correlates with a specific letter. And this was such a unique puzzle. I gotta say that Her Interactive really outdid themselves with the creativity in this game.
And then once you spell out the place, they'll send back to you, oh, that was a wonderful puzzle, and well, that was a wonderful game. I feel like I've played one similar to it at the bench right outside of this fountain at this location. And then you go there and they've left something for you like that.
Well, and this goes along with Antonio's really cryptic way of communicating with these dealers, and I just really liked that because it made Antonio feel, like a just complete psychopath and how he communicates with all these people, but he's also like genius at the same time.
This man is a like criminal mastermind, it looks like. Or maybe it wasn't even him. Maybe it's Scopa dude, Il Dottore, or whoever was who. No, Il Dottore was, spoiler alert, that's Helena, and we don't figure that out till later on in the game. Otherwise, I think that about covers puzzles. We've spent a long time talking about it because this game was remarkable for puzzles, lots of creative stuff in it. Let's move on to music.
Now, the music of this game is very, very fitting for the atmosphere, and it's pretty catchy, which is always what I look for in a Nancy Drew game as well. My favorite tracks in particular, I gotta go with 3 of them. There's Venice, Pigeon, and Goblin.
Goblin's my favorite for certain, but there's another one that I want to get into as well.
All of these tracks are very relaxing. They do a great job of using Italian instrumentals.
It's all like plucked strings and just regular strings.
Right, it's Italian instrumentals. It's very well done for the game.
Yes, it's got a very big Renaissance Venetian vibe, but...
So Venice is the one that I think plays most frequent throughout the game. It's pretty much regardless of location. You can hear it almost anywhere. And it's really soothing. We're gonna play a little snippet of it here. Secondly, I also love Pigeon. Pigeon is another one of those tracks that plays pretty much almost every part of the game.
I hear Pigeon the most when I'm out on the map traveling to different places, taking the gondola or the Vespas that they have for rental all over the place. And so that's a really cool track to be hearing. It's got a nice flute in it, I think. It's some sort of woodwind. We'll play a bit of Pigeon right here. My 2 favorite tracks in this game are easily Goblin and Creep. I'll take Goblin first. So Goblin is probably my favorite track, and I think it's because this, out of any of the Nancy Drew games, is one of the most suspenseful tracks that they've ever done without having a really high beats per minute, like like final scene tension tracks and stuff like that. It's a very, very slow and super ominous track, and I love the intensity of the strings in it. I'll play the best part of it right here. finally, I think my other favorite one is Creep. I just have the greatest track titles today, Goblin and Creep. They're made for each other. But anyhow, this one starts off very low and quiet with just like a timpani bass or something, and then it just swells into like this really pretty song with woodwind and strings, like most of the other songs in the game. We'll play it right here.
So, out of the 4 tracks we just played, we'd love to hear which one is your favorite down in the comments below, because hearing the community's opinions, especially on music, one of my favorite parts of all Nancy Drew games, it's just super fun. I don't know. Music is what makes these games come together, in my opinion. It's the glue for Nancy Drew games, so please comment down below which track is your favorite, because we love them all. Lastly, I think it's a good segue between music and atmosphere. It's worth mentioning that you can pay for optional singing on the Venice canals, which is just a super cool... It's a nice touch on the game. And I gotta be honest, I typically do it once or twice the entire playthrough, but it makes me happy that it's an option in the game.
Yeah, and that just plays like a nice slideshow of just cool Venice pictures. It's got some Andy Jason werewolf vibes.
Yeah, it's pretty nice, and I don't know what to say after that.
It only costs like 10 or 15 euros. It's a good puzzle.
They range in expenses. I think the most expensive is Luigi, or is that the most cheapest?
Luigi is the free one. By the way, it's just called Luigi to use the gondola. I don't know what the deal is with that. Like if Luigi is the gondola driver or something. Hey, Luigi. I don't know what that translates to in Italian. Otherwise, I think that about wraps up music. Atmosphere is going to be another big one, so how about we get into that? Because there's a lot of really cool scripted events in this game. The first thing to note about atmosphere in this game has to be the opening cutscene. This is one of the few Nancy Drew games that begins in medias res, or in the middle of things, meaning that it tells the story out of order. And so the game actually begins with Nancy walking through the sewers at the end of it with like a really intense theme playing. I think it's the tunnel theme, yeah. And she's just going through these different rooms, and then a door gets shut behind her, and the room starts filling with sewage, and she's gonna drown. And she goes, "Oh man, Nancy, what happened to you?" It's just like, you know, the opening to Megamind. But she's just like, what could have been? This case started out so well. What went wrong? What could be better than waking up in Venice, Italy? And then it just cuts to Nancy waking up in her bed as the Goblin theme starts to play, and she's recovering from jet lag, and she's getting her sleep cycle back in order. And then she just goes outside and meets Colin, and...
Okay, this could be an unpopular opinion, but I did not really like the opening cutscene. It really just felt out of order and more or less just a confusing way to start the game, because the 90% of the game you don't even see sewers, you know? Yeah. So it could have been better foreshadowing than that, I guess, but it has its place in an experimental start for a Nancy Drew game, I'll give it that.
This was a very experimental era for the franchise, for sure.
Okay, now for the atmosphere, I think it's great for this game. It really captures Venice, Italy really well, and I think it's overall pretty beautiful. There's a lot of different locations you can go to. There's a ton of different locations in the game. It's actually one of the biggest games in my opinion, and the way that you travel is through the map. Every time you back out of a location, this map screen pops up, and you have to click on the location you want to go to, and you presumably take canals to that location. It's a couple seconds every time you want to travel to a location, and I think it could have been tweaked a little better so that you could just jump to a specific location instead of having to go to 6 different locations if you wanted to go to the marketplace from Nacosta, sorry.
Yeah.
But I don't know. The map sequence could have been tweaked a little bit, but it adds to the environment, I think, at the same time.
Now, one thing that I want to say about my personal bias is that I've said before that I don't really like it when games try to make their whole setting just the gimmick of the city. I didn't like how Danger by Design made Paris being their gimmick. And sometimes I have forgiveness for this. Like, they do some cool stuff with... No, they don't. But they do... Sometimes...
Talk about what you don't like then.
Well, yeah, so... I feel like in Danger by Design, they tried to pull off a similar gimmick where they just made the whole thing, this is the Paris game. And I feel like maybe it's just because I'm not the biggest fan of Parisian culture, just for no reason, it just doesn't really interest me that much. But I feel like this game just made Venice really enticing. Like, it was a really pretty game. I feel like they did a great job of making the gondolas instrumental in traveling around. And atmospherically, it's pretty good. I especially love that they put a ton of locations in the game, which really does make up for having the map layout. There's maybe 6 or 7 scripted locations you can visit, even if some of them are just little kiosks. And they are pretty cool. They're satisfactory. This game definitely gets an approval from me in terms of atmosphere. As far as other cool cutscenes and stuff that happen in the game, I think on Nancy's second night at the Costa, or maybe it's the first one, she personally gets robbed by the Phantom of Venice. Nancy wakes up in the middle of the night and this terror theme starts playing, and she looks up and this man is standing over her with this green mask on her head, snatches the locket from her, runs out to the balcony while Helena comes out of the bathroom and just screams, and does a backflip into the canal and disappears.
This is the kind of excitement that this game needed at the midway point. This was a really unexpected and super cool cutscene, and I love that the Phantom took the necklace or the locket that keeps getting referenced by every single suspect in this game. That was a cool, clever way of foreshadowing, and it also throws suspicion around because we know that Helena and Colin love the locket. They've been complimenting it nearly every time you interact with them. So it was a really cool little plot So it was a really cool way of throwing suspicion around by having the Phantom take the locket straight off of Nancy's neck while she's asleep.
Yeah, oh man, there's so many things about that. You can call him Ned, and there's probably like unique dialogue, I forget how it goes, where you tell him, yeah, that locket you got me, it's gone now.
No, I did talk to him about it. He wasn't that upset, honestly.
He's just glad that we're okay. That's a Ned kind
Classic
of way to be.
Ned.
Uh-huh.
But I mentioned before, it was so unexpected. It kind of took me by surprise. I was a little scared at first because Nancy opens her eyes to the Phantom looming over her face, snatching the locket off of her. I was like, what the heck is going on?
I knew it was coming, but I didn't tell Julian.
I had no clue. That was pretty good. This is what the game needed, was that scary little cutscene at the midway point.
There is one of the most legendarily creepy Nancy Drew moments ever, where after the heist happens, Nancy's in her mood at the car, and she gets a phone call from woman with like a muffled voice, and it just goes, "Don't ever do that again." And Nancy's just like, "Excuse me, who is this?" And you figure out this woman calling you is the real Samantha Quick. And she says, "I don't know what your game is with Enrico Taza, but finish it up quick and I'll let it slide," or something. And it's the creepiest thing ever, because at the end of the call she goes, "Now stay out of my hair, Nancy Drew. Oh, and say hi to Ned for me." And then she just hangs up.
That was a super cool phone call, and it's great because the game still could have flowed so nicely without it, but it was just like icing on the cake. That was such a nice phone call.
This is the most dramatic Nancy Drew in the franchise up until Game 18. Other games can get more dramatic at times.
No, the final scene is still more dramatic.
I disagree. This game is crazy. There was so much unexpected. Some parts of it just get too difficult, but wow, I'm totally gonna buy me a set of Scopa cards.
Alright.
In terms of atmosphere and other things, we do have some returning characters on the phone, like Prudence Rutherford, so that was pretty cool. There's no Sunny June in this game, is there?
No.
Okay, I was just mistaking that for Danger by Design then. But anyhow, I like being able to wear different clothes. I think that the dancing at the club is kind of weird, and I could probably do without that. But anyhow, I feel like this game, again, I've said it a million times, solid atmosphere, and I feel like that they made the city of Venice really come alive. And the best part was that they made the story more about just the city of Venice. It was about Art Thief.
Mm-hmm. So let's jump into the ending of the game now. This game has a really interesting ending.
Yeah, so there are many, many climactic events that happen. It's like a first, second, third, and fourth act. First, there'll be like the Phantom steals Nancy's necklace, and then you have to heist the Sapphire. Then you do the stakeout with Nico, and you get him caught. You get the Phantom caught, but you still don't know who Il Dottore is, the ringleader of the operation. And then finally, Nancy goes to the wells and finds a bunch of incriminating documents and determines by an address on a letter that was addressed to Helena at the beginning, then Chicago somewhere. Helena is Il Dottore, the ringleader who's behind it all. Right, so Nico, the police know him before. He's been picked up for petty things. He's just kind of like a freelance thief. He's a real Johnny Kudo kind of guy. And so he refused to talk, though, and they knew that he was not the brains behind the operation because he's a kind of stupid guy. They have that on record. But he refused to talk about who he was working for.
This is where the game transitions from who is the Phantom to who is Il Torre. And this was a pretty well done transition because you get this grand puzzle finally capturing Nico. But it's not over after that, because Nico isn't actually a character you interact with. He is the bronze of the operation. You need to find the brains now.
Yeah, and so Nancy figures out from an address on a shipping crate that she finds in the secret storage room that's way underneath the wells in the Venice sewers. I believe this is actually where you use the combination that Nancy finds on the microdot all the way back at the pigeon puzzle. And she figures out that Helena is responsible for this. Nancy then undoes this pipe puzzle to prevent from drowning, because this is where Nancy comes in at the beginning in the opening cutscene where she's walking around. Nancy comes up to the sewers and she tracks down Helena with the tracking device pen that we embedded on her at one point in the game, and we get a silly cutscene of just Helena just walking as suspiciously as possible, and she just turns into an alley and Nancy goes, "Helena, I can see you," and she just ducks into this little... Well, I'm gonna play that right here. It's just so funny.
Now, what I find interesting about this ending is that Helena swears this is not the final time we're gonna meet. She swears to come back for Nancy. And her interactive is never followed up on this. We haven't even gotten like a glimmer of where Helena's been incarcerated to.
Maybe she was Dwayne Power's getaway driver in 7 Ships.
Maybe that's a hot take, but I just thought it was interesting that the culprit would declare something so bold like that they would come back to haunt Nancy.
I mean, there probably have been other suspects who say that, but we always overlook it because so far only one of them has come through with it. Mm-hmm. But anyhow...
Oh, and it's also worth noting that she's wearing the locket that was stolen.
Oh, yeah, and so Nancy gets her locket back.
So that was pretty cool.
Anyhow... endgame letter reads, and everyone gets the resolutions. There's a really, really interesting part of the letter. I'll see if I can't put this frame in here, where it talks about Colin and how he called Nancy from the States eventually and asked if he ever got her locket back. Nancy says yes, and then he just hangs up. And it's super suspicious, and it shows this sad picture of Colin just in his hotel room. But the weirdest thing, which I never noticed the first time, or just I almost didn't notice it this time, is that there is a woman in the picture with him. You can see her silhouette standing in the doorway. And I don't know what significance there is to that, but there's someone in there with him. Maybe it's Samantha Quick. I don't know.
I didn't know that at all, because Colin disappears halfway. No, like 2/3 of the way through the game, he's gone, which was really unexpected.
Honestly, I feel like the ending was a little underwhelming when it just comes to Nancy chasing Helena down that alley. I mean, come to think of it, it is pretty funny.
It was more funny than like an actual serious ending.
I thought it was kind of ironic just how after everything Nancy's gone through, all these intense things, it's just like, Helena, I can see you hiding behind that dumpster.
Well, she was gonna get away, but the police were on both ends of the alleyway at that point. She was completely closed in.
Yeah, and she puts her hands up and they have her at gunpoint. Anyways,
so let's get into the rating of this game now. There's a lot to take into account when we're reviewing this one.
Oh my god, I forgot that we have to rate these games. I don't know what I'm gonna say. I need a second. You go first.
Okay. So, rating this game, it's kind of a tough one to rate, really. I'm looking over the 6 things right here. The story and premise is the golden part of this game. That's in my opinion. This game's got a great story, and I loved it. Now, we're jumping into suspects. They're just on the bland side. I don't know. Colin/Justin is my favorite one, and that's because he's the most dynamic, but it would have done a great favor to the game if we could have actually interacted with Antonio. That would have been sweet, and that's just a missed opportunity in my opinion. Puzzles, great puzzles. These are the most unique puzzles we've seen in a Nancy Drew game to date. Music, it's great for the environment. I love it. It's really catchy, and that's a focal point of Nancy Drew soundtracks. The atmosphere's great, captures Venice really well, and then the ending, another part that I'm not that keen on. I don't know. The ending was never that interesting to me. So taking all of this into account, it's got some great ups and some kind of low lows. The suspects being this bland and such a major point in Nancy Drew games has to take the score down a little bit in my opinion. I'm going to be giving Nancy Drew The Phantom of Venice a B.
Okay, so like I said, this is probably the one game next to Danger by Design that I knew the least about until I replayed it the other week. And I gotta say, I would not recommend this game for a new player just because the puzzles are so difficult. But as a longtime fan of the franchise, the music and the atmosphere and the puzzles are pretty challenging and fun and just all around good. But I feel like this game deserves a 7th category, to just aside from story, about just how dramatic parts of it are. I'm honestly gonna have to give this game an A now that I think about it.
Wow,
because
this is an A-tier game, huh?
Well, yeah, and I feel like I could probably say that the majority of Nancy Drew games are at least A tier. But this game, yeah, I'd say so. There aren't very many bad games.
Okay.
But there aren't always so many S tier games, too. This game blew me away. I had no idea how cool parts of it were, because the last time I played this, I was like in the 2nd grade using a CD-ROM copy I got from the library. Oh my gosh, it's one of the best paced games in terms of action and drama and payoff. If anything, you could say the ending falls a little flat, but the robbery, the getting your locket stolen, the heist, oh my gosh, just the phone call from Samantha Quick. So much about this game was just astounding, and I'm giving it an A.
There you have it, folks. We got an A from Jameson and a B from myself here. Thanks so much for staying tuned and listening to our review of The Phantom of Venice. Thank you also again for the influx of subscribers we just had. We love making these reviews for you guys, and we love the community engagement and the comments that we get from them. It's so much fun to do, and we're so happy that we just have built this very small, humble community of people who also feel the same way about these games.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun checking to see everyone's comments and replies on all the videos. We promise we'll be able to get back to you on your stuff, because we only have so many subscribers right now, and nothing else going on with the quarantine, so we got plenty of time to get back to you, and we'd love to keep the discussion going.
So thanks so much for listening, everybody. Please let us know what your favorite music tracks were for the game and what you think. Who is your favorite suspect? Just keep the conversation going.
Vote for Holt, everybody.
Vote for Holt.